Our next performer, Rob Wiley, is a true Renaissance man, fierce attorney by day. At night, he changes his business attire for a writer's cape and labors long into the night, writing fiction, memoirs, and other literary delights. Weekends, when he's not attending UT football games, he can sometimes be persuaded to preach a sermon on 3 things that we should know, learn, or at least pay attention to. Please welcome Rob and his pithy wisdom.
Thank you very much. I want you to ignore what's on the screen. That is not how you spell my name. A lot of people have asked me, what are you going to do when you quit selling your life 1 hour at a time? And I said, well, I've always fooled around with words. And, I couldn't play football very well, so I wrote about football. And I couldn't play basketball very well, so I announced basketball. And I couldn't do much of anything else, so I decided I'd write. And now I'm writing novels. What I'm going to read to you tonight is a short story that I've written that maybe one day will become a novel. We'll see. And it comes out of one of the questions I always have when I'm writing about relationships, and that is, how do people get to know each other? How does something start? How do you meet? And so this little story is about how 2 people who, as I envision the story going forward, are going to have a relationship of various intensity. And so how they first meet, and that's what this is about. It's 1,500 words, so hopefully bearable in terms of length and my distraction from the other activities of the evening. The title of the story is Not in a Million Years. He was there, in her face, large as life, the charcoal skin glistening. She wondered why she hadn't screamed when she awakened. His lips parted. She opened her arms. When he headed for her, she woke up. Margaret Brandt sat on her bed, pale feet planted on the floor of her bedroom in her starter house in Richardson, a north of Dallas suburb. She retrieved a glass of water from the kitchen furnished with old school appliances that she'd replaced after year-end bonuses came out. She was headed for 3,000 billable hours, so she'd get a 5-figure bonus that started with a crooked number. Those thoughts distracted her only briefly. Why was she dreaming about a random black man she'd met at a Dallas night spot when he bumped into her, spilling cranberry juice down her blouse? His carelessness ruined a Rebecca Taylor that cost $200 plus. What freaked her out was that June Friday night was her attraction to Mr. Cranberry. She wasn't prejudiced, right? Race didn't matter. She didn't see color. Margaret knew white people disguised racism with euphemisms like those, but this couldn't happen, could it? Margaret's family had bypassed the euphemisms. Sunday dinner 2 weeks ago degenerated into a gripe session about sorry blacks and how they'd soon take over the world. Her mother sounded straight out of the 1950s when she told the table, I wish they'd stay with their own kind. Margaret's father's racial angst included his disdain for corporate overseers he had to suck up to. They pontificate about diversity and inclusion. It's bullshit. I got no use for blacks. What do we need with them? Company got along fine when they were janitors and cleaning ladies. Cindy passed the mashed potatoes. Somebody probably makes Maggie's law firm hire some of them. I bet none of them made the grade she did. They get pushed to the top when they don't deserve it. Isn't that right, Maggie? Margaret demurred. I'm sure the lawyers in my firm meet our standards or they wouldn't have been hired. Yet, as she sipped water and stared at green numbers on her bedside clock, Margaret admitted her family had rubbed off on her. High school proved that. One October day during her senior year, Liz Woods, still Margaret's closest friend after a soccer practice, stood beside bleachers talking with teammates. She reported one friend, a tennis star at their private school, had a new beau. Kristen has a thing going with a guy she met at tennis camp at UT. So, asked one of the others. He's black, Liz told them. You're making that up, someone offered. I am not. I saw them at the mall. Later, I asked Kristen if the guy is her boyfriend. She said yes. Liz paused, then turned to Margaret and smiled. Maggie, could you get attracted to a black guy? I sure could. They're great guys. They're just, what's the big deal? Not in a million years could that happen, Margaret replied. Not in a million years. Monday, Jack Marks, the tall, silver-haired, 50-something partner who kept Margaret plied with work and taught her all about being a corporate lawyer in a big firm, called. Come see me, he said. We have a new piece of business. She rode the elevator up to Jack's 43rd floor office. En route, she checked her skin for wrinkles and her hose for runs. Bennett and Wilson enforced an old school dress code. Men wore dark suits, white shirts, and ties. Women wore dresses or suits, always with hose. Show up out of uniform and nasty looks and/or verbal admonitions from the powers that be followed. Jack got to the point. A longtime client has a project I need help on. Ever hear of Simpson Technologies? Don't think so, Margaret said from the chair in front of Jack's desk. They're in transportation, which is why they're doing the deal I want you to handle. They're acquiring an aircraft parts company. She looked up, her face reddening and her skin tingling. I may have heard of them. I literally ran into a guy in a club one night who gave me his card. I think it said Simpson Technologies. Remember a name? She frowned. D something, I'm not sure. Meet me in the elevator lobby on this floor at 1:30. We have a 2:15 appointment with the Simpson people. Before they left for the meeting, the name of the man from her dream, Mr. Cranberry, haunted her. Why couldn't she remember it? She blamed her memory failure on anger. She could still feel the wet juice that made her breast sticky under her bra. She saw that business card lying on her kitchen counter. In Jack's car, fear crept up on her. No chance, she thought. That couldn't be. At Simpson's offices, a secretary ushered them into a conference room. She said their counterparts would arrive shortly. Margaret fidgeted with buttons on her blouse and checked her phone for messages. She crossed her fingers in terror. Jack said she'd take the lead in handling Simpson's purchase of a company in Wisconsin. She'd work with a young vice president for development. Jack told her he didn't know the man, but had heard he was top-notch. The conference room door opened. A tall, robust white man who looked between 45 and 50 walked in. Hello, Jack, he said. Good to see you, Will. This is Margaret Brandt. Margaret, Will Henderson. Before she could respond, the door opened again. Henderson said, we have another person. Oh, here he is. A black man in a dark suit, white shirt, and red tie stepped through the door. This is DeAndre Watkins, Henderson said. Jack, DeAndre is the guy I told you who will be your contact. DeAndre, Jack Marks, and Margaret Brandt. Margaret stood. She managed a smile and extended her hand, first to Henderson, then to Watkins. DeAndre Watkins was Mr. Cranberry, the man who ruined her blouse and invaded her dreams. Had she lived a million years?